Could faculty at a university near you be going on strike sometime soon? We'll be talking about that tonight. And we'll be talking about the presidential campaign. I know I said last week I wasn't going to talk about it too much, but there was some other stuff that came up. We'll talk about that tonight on Feedback. Good evening, welcome to Feedback. I'm Mark Despotakis. We will be talking to Mrs. Sue Traynor coming up about negotiations going on and the possibility of a strike here at Clarion coming up a little bit later in the show. But first I want to talk a little bit about the presidential campaign. Last week, I talked a little bit about it, talking about Steve Forbes. Well, this week I want to move to the Democrat side and some news that happened from Friday on, actually. Last Friday it was announced that Ed Rendell, the mayor of Philadelphia, would be the new head of the Democratic Party. Well, then I read in Monday's newspaper that Ed Rendell is canceling his Al Gore endorsement. Now, obviously I don't find that strange because in Ed Rendell's position he is not allowed to say he endorses Gore or he endorses Burley. But what I do find interesting about this after I read the article, I sort of thought about this for a minute. Al Gore has sort of been thought of as the front runner. I think the media is sort of portraying him as the front runner. But Bill Bradley, I've heard his name come up a lot, and a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of talk show hosts I've heard, and callers on these talk shows have said, well, we're going to support Bill Bradley. Thus far, we think he's the candidate. Obviously, it's still early, but that doesn't stop people from making predictions. Another thing happened this weekend that sort of made me think, yeah, Bill Bradley might be the one. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, as you know, is the senator from New York who is retiring from his seat, and Hillary Clinton is running for his seat in New York. Now, with Hillary running for that seat, Moynihan has endorsed Hillary. You'd sort of think that maybe he would endorse Gore because of the whole Clinton connection there. Well, he has come out supporting Bill Bradley. Now, I find that kind of interesting because he's sort of switching camps there. And I saw a list of other senators, and it was, so far, those who have made the endorsements are pretty much equal for Gore and Bradley. But I just find it interesting because Bradley, earlier in the campaign, seemed to be pretty behind in the race, not looked upon as the front runner. I'd keep my eye on this one, even though I did talk to somebody the other day, and I mentioned the name Bill Bradley, and they didn't know who I was talking about. You might want to pay attention to this Bill Bradley because I think he possibly could show up in this race. You know, it's still early, but we've been hearing about this presidential campaign for months now, and it's still eons away. So just something for you to think about. Wanted to bring that up. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take the break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the possibility of a strike at the state system of higher education schools. We'll be back.
Immediate opens available for the most important jobs in America, helping the organizations that help children. Whatever you can do, in whatever time you have, you can make a difference. To learn how you can help in your community, reach us at this web address and number. We're fighting for the children. Whose side are you on?
You're getting so angry.
That's enough! Enough! I'm gonna give you something to scream about! Get over here! Get up!
I can't.
I'm talking to you! Get up!
I can't.
Stop crying! You're asking for it again!
For information about how you can help stop domestic violence, call us.
When you're small, the world can seem pretty big. But these kids are learning more about it every day. Because in his spare time, Harry Cooper teaches the children in his neighborhood how to use a computer. And every time he does, he puts the whole world in their hands. Couldn't you do something? No, it's not your money. It's you we want. Come on, pick up that phone.
And welcome back. We are here with Mrs. Sue Traynor. You are the president of Clarion APSCUF. Let's clarify. APSCUF stands for?
The Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties.
Okay, so that's the faculty union? Am I correct?
That's the union that represents all of the faculty. It's the association representing all of the faculty at all 14 of the SHE campuses.
Okay. Let's start with the basic question that everyone's asking, then we'll get a little bit more into this. How imminent is the possibility of a strike?
I don't think I want to deal in possibilities, but I can say that it certainly is looming.
Mm-hmm.
We are, as you know, taking a strike authorization vote today and tomorrow among our membership, and so we will know by later this week how that vote turned out. That vote allows the state organization to call a strike should they deem a strike necessary. So this vote doesn't mean we will strike, but it clears the way to allow for a strike should it be necessary.
Okay. What would provide it to be necessary?
There's only one scheduled set of negotiations left between the state system of higher education and APSCUF, and that will begin on Wednesday, September 29th, and it is due to close on Friday, October 1st. If there is no significant movement in that negotiating session, or if binding arbitration is not agreed to by the state system, then there wouldn't be much of an avenue left for APSCUF besides the concept of a strike to come into play.
Okay. We hear about binding arbitration. We've seen some flyers around campus and things. Maybe you can explain that. What is binding arbitration?
What APSCUF has proposed is what's referred to as last best offer binding arbitration. And what that would mean, and we've proposed it to take effect as of December 31st. What that would mean would be on December 31st, any issues that are not agreed to by then, APSCUF's last proposal and the state system of higher education's last proposal would go to an arbitrator. That arbitrator would be agreed upon by APSCUF and the state system. That arbitrator would study those two proposals, and the person would pick what he or she determined to be the more reasonable proposal, and that would be implemented as the contract. The faculty have, by proposing last best offer binding arbitration, they will agree to not strike in the fall should the state system agree to this. So the net effect, of course, for students would be there would be no strike in the next 3 years, because you wouldn't get a strike in the fall, and then we would have a contract, and you can't strike while you have a contract. So it would clear the way for pretty smooth sailing over the next 3 years.
When did your current contract expire?
June 30th of 1999.
Okay, so it's been now 4 or so months without the contract. You were mentioning December 31st would be the date that the final offers would go to binding arbitration. What's going to prevent a strike before December 31st?
Well, either getting a contract or the state agreeing to go to binding arbitration as of that date. Because what it would then do is that both parties would negotiate very seriously during the fall, hoping to reach a contract without an arbitrator.
Okay. What seems to be the main sticking point between the teachers union or the faculty union and the state right now in contract talks?
There are a variety of issues out there that we haven't reached agreement on, but probably one of the largest concerns for the association is what's known as the step increment for faculty. Faculty, particularly newer faculty entering the system, move from one step to another year after year till they reach the top of their rank. And that step, the state is now proposing that it be cut in half. So instead of 7 years really with 7 steps to get to the top or to move toward the top, state wants to double the number of steps to 14 and cut the value of each step in half. The people who are at that rank are really who we would consider to be our junior, lower paid faculty, and so they would be very seriously hurt by the proposal. That's probably the largest item that's an obstacle.
Obviously, faculty members are wanting a binding arbitration and don't want to strike, but my question is, how much has faculty been involved? Obviously, you've been very involved in this. Day one that I came back here, I did see some people out asking to sign a petition, but overall throughout the semester and even throughout the summer, how involved have faculty been to try and get that message out?
Well, faculty, our negotiating team consists of faculty from all 14 campuses. And additionally, as does the state system, we employ an attorney at the negotiating table too. The negotiators do the negotiating in Harrisburg. I'm not on the negotiating team, but I know what they report to me, and I attempt to get that back to the faculty. The faculty, some are more involved than others. Everybody can be informed by checking the website, and I think by now the faculty are pretty well trained to check the website after every single negotiating session. And also there's a 800 hotline that APSCUF maintains so that people can call after the negotiating session, find out what happened, if anything moved or anything of that nature. There are local committees as well. There's a local committee structure. We have a local organization that functions to provide for our campus operations at Clarion. So they're all different levels and types of involvement.
Okay. With the arbitration that's going on, how receptive is the union and the state into working together? I mean, are they working together well? Have you heard, news from the front, if you will?
Well, the reason that we really want to push for binding arbitration is because there's very little movement at all. The negotiators that I talked to this weekend have said that the net result of negotiating since the very beginning of August, when the state system put their last proposal on the table, the only changes that they've agreed to since then is in one article of the contract to change the word should to the word shall, and they've changed one sentence. So for almost 2 months of negotiating, that's not a lot of progress. So I think without arbitration or without something turning rather rapidly, things will continue to go in a way that moves the teams very close to impasse.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back, and what you've been really doing a lot and what you're going to continue to do, and how students can get involved. We'll be back.
Late one night in
Every week for the past 4 years, Stephanie has read stories to a room full of Savannah, Georgia preschoolers. Every week, the look on the children's faces is priceless. The love that Stephanie feels from every child has made her life a whole lot brighter. Even though Stephanie has never even seen their faces. To see how you can help in your community, call the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel real.
On the big highway of life, there's only one safe place for kids. The front seat's not the place to drop out. Don't want that big old bag to pop out. Put that booties in the backseat now. Have action kids you never meet. I'm here to remind you to put them behind you. Oh, look at here. To stay alive even when I drive.
I'm sure some of you feel funny talking with your parents about things you hear in the schoolyard, things about sex, drugs, alcohol. But if you talk with your parents, maybe you won't feel as odd or be as confused or frightened. Watching TV as a family can help get these tough conversations started. You can talk about what you've seen and what you've heard, and how it makes you feel. Your parents want to talk to you. Get things started today. Ask your parents to call for these free guides, Talking with Kids and New Tools.
His father left home today.
I'll be there.
Forever.
Wait and see.
He'll be twice as likely to drop out of high school. 30% more likely to attempt suicide.
'Cause I love you.
Even if you don't live with your kids, your emotional and financial support gives them a better chance.
I'll be the best friend you ever had.
Alrighty, and we are back, continuing our conversation here. You are a very busy lady. Well, I mean, what have you been up to? Where have you been going? Obviously, here on campus, you've orchestrated a lot.
Well, I have a pretty good committee of people to support me. We do have already formulated a strike team on campus. We have a strike chair and several other people who are coordinating facets of what would be a potential strike. We've located off-campus headquarters for the strike, and we've begun to formulate where pickets would take place, how it would occur, make signs, do all the things that are necessary to bring off a strike should one be necessary. And the idea is to be prepared and hope that you don't have to use any of their preparations. So sure, I've been heading up that effort, and I've been in touch with the state organization as well. We had a meeting this weekend, and a lot of it was devoted to strike preparations and hearing about what's going on at the state level.
Okay. Speaking of the state level, I know I've seen some ads in the newspapers, but just today as I was reading, I saw one in the Post-Gazette. I don't know if you can see that. That was in the Post-Gazette today. So are you at all involved in this, or are you aware of these things that are going on, and why is this going on?
Well, the ad that you see today, I knew on Friday when I met with people from the state organization that they would be placing ads for Monday. Our ads are really in some ways a response to the ads that the state system of higher education has been running for the past 2 weeks. They've run 2 different ads on 2 days each, and so it became time to do a little bit of responding and to encourage people to be informed before they make decisions. And so yes, I knew that ad would run in all of our local markets. That ad also ran today in the local paper to Clarion, which would be the Oil City Derrick.
Okay. Overall, you know, we're through 1 day of voting now. Was it a big faculty turnout for voting?
It was pretty significant today. I didn't take a complete head count, but certainly today we're well over the halfway mark.
Oh, that's okay. Now, student-wise, obviously you want community and the students to support you. How can they do that?
Really what we'd ask is that the students maybe not necessarily even take a side. What we'd like them to do more than anything, because we don't necessarily want them to say, I'm for the faculty, I'm for the state system. What we'd like to do is to move the proposals to binding arbitration. So what we'd like the students to do is to encourage that binding arbitration be accepted by the state. That would mean that whoever's offer was the most reasonable would be the one that would be selected as our contract. People wouldn't have to take a side to do that.
Oh, okay. How can they do that?
Students could contact the chancellor's office by writing or by using the email addresses that are all over campus. They could contact the governor's chief of staff, that would be Mark Holman, or they could contact the third person, and that would be Eugene Hickok. He's the secretary of the Department of Education. Contacting these folks by email, they're either on the negotiating team for the state or they have tremendous influence to the governor's office. Those things would all help maybe push the binding arbitration concept. And that would be very helpful.
Go ahead, you can finish your point.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I did see those signs all over campus, but you were telling me something about the chancellor's email address, and I think we just put it up on the screen, but what's the news on that?
Well, as of this afternoon, the students were coming back to us as we were giving them the addresses when they were asking, you know, what can we do? We were giving them addresses at our polling place, And students were going into Carlson Library, writing quick email messages and returning back to us saying, well, 2 of the messages got through, but the chancellor's email is shut down and the email is being returned to us as undeliverable. And that has happened before. We thought we had an email address that was open because we took the chancellor's email address out of his ad. But it's apparently closed down today. I would just encourage students, if you get mail returned back to you, wait a few days and forward it back and see if it doesn't go through. And there are a couple of alternate addresses you could try.
Okay, and you have those at the polling place, which is where? Carlson
Lobby is our polling place at Clarion. I'm also going to deliver them tonight to the Student Senate meeting.
Okay. And how about, has there been any sort of rough times with faculty here versus administration here?
Well, I think whenever you get down to the 11th hour and contracts aren't going well, negotiations aren't going well, there's always going to be an us and them approach to life, because we don't have a contract and the administration works for the state system of higher education as an administrator. So there's got to be some sense of that. However, the campus still has to function here locally, and so I believe it is functioning normally in that sense.
Okay. I know it's certainly been the talk of the campus. Everyone I talk to says, you heard this, you heard that, and there's a lot of rumors. I don't know if you've heard anything, I don't know if you even know the answer to this, but if you heard anything about contingency plans in case there is a strike, what would happen to the students?
Well, the first thing that I encourage people to do is when they hear rumors, call an appropriate party and either get the rumor confirmed or get the rumor squashed. And the easiest way to do that really is that if it's a rumor that APSCUF can address for you, if it deals with the actual negotiations or something from a faculty perspective, students can always call the APSCUF office. That would be 2089 on campus. Or they could stop down in the APSCUF office, that's the basement of the chapel, or they could email me or stop by my office in Becker. There's always a way from that perspective. If it's a rumor that pertains to what's going to happen to the students' arrangements in the dorm, how about the meal plans, that all would need to be checked out through the administration. I would encourage students to go to Carrier and ask the appropriate people the questions.
Okay. The other thing that I get is rumor-wise that I've heard a lot is, well, if they strike, how long is it going to be? Do you, is there anything set in time, or it's just until?
There isn't a way of knowing that. A strike, I imagine, could be extremely short because there would be contract movement and a settlement, or it could obviously go on for a long period of time. I can't predict it, and I really can't plan for it, except that when I plan for the organization, I have to plan for the longest time frame, which would mean day after week after week, because I need those kind of plans.
Okay, and where are we at right now in the process? Sort of a little recap.
A little recap. We're going to conclude the strike authorization vote tomorrow and send all those ballots along with the ballots from that the people from Slippery Rock will send, and IUP and all the other campuses. They will go to Harrisburg and be counted. In the meantime, the 2 negotiating teams, team from each side, will get together on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So the closing date is scheduled for October 1st to do the last scheduled set of negotiations. They're working with a mediator and have been working with a mediator for quite some time. And then from there, decisions will have to be made. It will depend on what happens at the negotiating table or what doesn't happen at the negotiating table, and what the vote looks like, what the strike authorization vote looks like as well.
So students are going to be sort of playing it by ear just as
we are. That's right. And we'll be glad always to keep students informed, and we encourage you to check our website. That's www.apscuf.com. And you're welcome to go out there anytime and see what's new or what's not new.
Okay, thanks a lot. We appreciate you coming on the show tonight. We will certainly keep you updated as the story progresses. We'll be right back.
Less crime is no accident. Programs like mentoring, job training, counseling, along with after-school activities are keeping kids away from crime and crime away from kids. Look around. These kinds of programs are kids who are staying out of trouble. It takes you and programs that work. Call 1-800-WE-PREVENT and we'll send you a free booklet. Call now and help take a bite out of crime.
Here's my nephew Scruff, about to run into trouble again.
Hey, Bobo, where's your video game? In here. Well, look at this. Uh-oh, it's my dad's. I want to hold it. What'll I do?
If you get my new comic activity book, More Adventures with Scruff, you'll find out what you can do about bullies and guns. And you'll see lots of games.
Cool.
For your free copy of my new comic activity book, just write Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652, and help take a bite out of crime.
I want it, I want it.
It's my birthday. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, I told you, don't be bringing that weak stuff in here. Yeah. Who's the man? Who's the man?
Exercised lately?
Okay, once again, we want to thank Mrs. Sue Traynor for joining us. And we should also note that this show was taped yesterday. You're watching us on Tuesday. The show was taped Monday night. Mrs. Traynor was at the Student Senate meeting last night at 7:30 if you're watching us on Tuesday night. That's all we have for you tonight. We're going to keep you updated, obviously, on any strike negotiations and the talks on this show and on TV5 News. And stay tuned for TV5 News coming up next.